Hey everybody, and welcome to this paint tutorial. For the recent release of the tzaangors for Age of Sigmar and for Thousand Suns, I'm going to show you how to paint one of those. For this, we're only going to base on the skin to Battle Ready Standard. Actually, no, Parade Ready. So for this, let me just find my Celestia Gray. Where is it? For the skin, we're going to start off with the base coat of Celestia Gray. You may be wondering why we're using Celestia Gray. It's because that's the proper color to use for this. And don't worry, it may seem a little weird, but don't worry. So, Celestia Gray. And literally paint this all over this skin. Out of all the tzeentch models I painted, tzaangors are very, very difficult. The reason why is because their armor, because they have a lot of trim like the Thousand Suns. It doesn't matter if they're part of 40k or Age of Sigmar. They have a lot of trim, gold trim, so it's going to be really difficult. But don't worry, just take your time. Also on the legs. You may be wondering why the legs are purple. Don't worry, we'll get to that in just a moment. And the reason why I'm not thinning down my paint for today is because my paint pot, sorry about that, my paint pot is kind of contaminated at the moment, so I'm going to have to change it. But I wanted to make sure I get this done first. Alright, that's skin base coated. Alright, so the reason why I wanted to just do the skin for today is because I just wanted to show like one of the many details to get this over with. But don't worry, I will eventually do a tutorial on the hair. So let me pick up that paint pot that I just dropped. Sorry about that. Okay, so while the paint is drying, let me make sure it's dry real quick. Yes, it is. Alright, so we're going to take a wash. For this, all we're going to need is Drakenhof Nightshade. Now we're going to apply this undiluted. The reason why is because Drakenhof Nightshade is the proper color to use all over the Celestia Gray, so it gives you that blue tint you're looking for. Okay, so here, I'm going to take some Drakenhof Nightshade, just put it on our table. This is just a spare table, so don't do this on your regular table. So, right here, all over the skin. You may be wondering why is this all over the skin, but don't worry, this is how the proper tutorial is. You could, of course, use Gray Sear, the Nighthawk Gloom. I tried that before, and unfortunately, it doesn't give you the nice effect that you're looking for. And don't worry if you go over the hair, you can just paint it over when you're done. And we're not going to paint the legs with this because we're going to do a different color. Okay, so that's our Drakenhof Nightshade done. So you may notice our Drakenhof Nightshade is over darkened the model. But don't worry, we're going to fix that right now. For this, we're going to use a different paint. But first off, let me make sure I have the paint real quick. Oh, here it is. We're going to do a skin highlight of Blue Horror. So, blue horror can be depending on a thick paint, depending on where you get it from. So for this, we're going to use a medium layer brush and just thin it down slightly. Okay, so kind of thin, but that's what we're looking for. So for this, all we're going to do is going to paint all over the skin. So look where the raised areas are, like the muscles. Alright, that's our tzaangor skin layered. So, for this we're going to move on to the final stage. It's pretty much optional if you want to go up to battle ready, but for this we're going to go with parade ready. So, for this we just need us another paler tone. All we're going to need some all-through gray. So, for this, this paint is pretty thin, so we're not going to thin it down. All we're going to do, so we're going to look up on the edges right here. So, we're going to look up right here. The recesses are on the muscles, on the pecs. Just look for all the edges of the muscle. So for right here, also for the face, just focus on the raised details like right here. Okay, there we go. Alright, so that's the skin highlighted. But we're going to move on to the final stage. You may be wondering, what's the final stage? But believe it or not, the tzaangors actually have a purple skin around their legs and in between the certain recesses. So, for this, we're going to do something very simple. For this, I'm going to use a contrast paint. We're going to use, where is it? We're going to use Dreadful Visage. Now, you could use a Magos Purple, but Magos Purple pigment is very aggressive. But Dreadful Visage is more thin, so that's why I like to use that. Always make sure to shake up your contrast paints or else they'll dry up really shiny, and you do not want that whatsoever. Okay, that's extra contrast paint shaken up. All right, for this I'm going to move on just a different brush. We're not going to put this on a palette. Just make sure you're not filling very much. So, just apply this. Now you'd be wondering, why is it so pale? The reason why we're adding this is because we're going to add the Magos purple in just a minute. We're just going to apply it to the deepest recesses of the miniature first. There we go. All right, so now that we've prepared our thing for the purple thing, now we're going to apply our Magos purple. So let me just get the Magos purple. Let me make sure I find it real quick. Here it is. We're going to take Magos purple. So shake up your contrast paints. All right, shaken up. Okay, so we're not going to thin this down. We're just going to make sure we apply this very nicely. So for this, all we're going to do, take some Magos purple. We're not going to thin this down at all. Put some on the palette. So all we're going to do, focus on the deepest recesses. So right here. Now we're going to switch to a smaller brush. Let me just get this. Okay, so take a smaller brush, or a small layer brush if you're using Citadel. All we're going to do right here, and focus in the deepest recesses, so in the chest and between the muscles, like so. Particularly on the back. And also you can do this in between the elbows or in the arms if you wish, but not the fingers. Leave the fingers as they are. Okay, there we go. Alright, that concludes our today's video on the tzaangors. So I really hope you enjoyed this painting tutorial on painting your tzaangor skin. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Bye-bye.